hands together and take a 3 deep breaths. In case if you know the prayer, you can recite along with me. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheva Pashatadeshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So once again we welcome you all for this mind management series or the program. So to begin with, we are discussing the topic titled as Kabhi, Khushi, Kabhi, Gham, which will be the second part today. But before we get into the discussion, let me start with some question answer back and forth. Let me open a forum here. And the first question that I would have for all of you is, what is success according to you? How would you define a successful person?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I think definition of success is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the definition of success is different to everyone.
At large, correct, because everyone thinks success in terms of goals. When they get their goal, they call it success. But general definition, what the world today teaches us success means. If you have that, you will call yourself successful. If other person has it, you will call him to be a successful person. That's it. I don't want anyone to philosophize here, which is good, but we don't follow that generally in our life. What you follow, what you believe, what will you call, let's say you call such and such person to be successful. Why such and such person is successful? What is that parameter?
Currently, I can think of happiness, I think.
Happiness. Then I guess the most successful person would be the air hostess. She's always smiling. She's paid for smiling, isn't it? Okay. Okay, we have some hands over here. Yes, go ahead. There's this gentleman. Money and fame, correct. How many of you agree with that? Money and fame somebody has, and that's how we measure happiness. Somebody has money and fame. We think we'll become happy, isn't it? Like that. Are we all on the same page? I mean, that's why we are working hard. If I have more money, if I have more recognition, and if you really doubt you that fame is not the one, how do you feel after you post a photo on a Facebook? 24 hours have passed by and not even a single like. If you become discouraged, then your happiness depends on your Facebook post liking, isn't it? So yes, that's how we are kind of trained up in today's environment. The success depends on if you have more recognition, more wealth, more possession, more followers, whatnot. But there is a little difference, a little different. There are a lot of difference in terms of how Lord Shri Krishna defines success in Bhagavad Gita. But let's take an example. I like to quote an example of this, a kind of a famous personality who's no more. How many of you know this gentleman? By the name of Heath Ledger, right? He was a Hollywood actor. One of his last movie in which he acted was, I believe, Batman Returns, in which he played a role of a Joker. So for that, after his death, he got an Oscar for his acting, for his performance. Now, he was just a 32-year-old man, born in Australia, moved to America with the hope of becoming a Hollywood actor. At a very young age, he was really successful. He had all the wealth, he had all the following, recognition. In other words, he was able to influence hundreds and thousands and millions of followers, but somewhere something went wrong with him, and he died. It was a Monday afternoon around 1:30 in the New York, in one five-star hotel where he was residing for the purpose of shooting of a film for some project, and somewhere maybe his assistant or secretary, somebody came around 1:30, and he has not responded since morning. Finally, they had to call some people. They broke the door, and they found this Heath Ledger, extremely successful person at such a young age. He died. He was dead. And then the postmortem was done, and the report, they found out that it was not a case of that somebody have killed him. It was but a case of natural death. And what was the case of natural death? How did he die? He died because of overdosage of a prescription drugs. He was prescribed certain medicines, and he overconsumed those medicines, which led to his death. And what is that prescription? What was the drugs which was prescribed to him? So he, as an individual, was having a sober, simple life. But when he was given a role of a joker, how many of you have seen the movie Batman Returns? Raise your hand high up. Or at least understand the character of Joker. Let me just tell you about this personality. So here he had to play a role of a Joker where the life story of a Joker is such, in his childhood he was abused. You see his face has a big cut marks. His father had actually cut his face like this. So in other words, he had a very abusive childhood because of which he grew up to become a very violent person. Now Heath Ledger had to play a role of such individual. And he wanted to really make it a best performance. A best performance is when it is natural. When you're really living that. And to live that, he had to really imbibe the consciousness of a joker. So he went into a kind of a psychosis where he kind of absorbed the character of Joker, which was extremely violent, had a very abusive childhood, who really enjoyed causing suffering to others. He went into that kind of a character, because of which, as a result, he could not fall asleep. Now he cannot fall asleep. And when he cannot fall asleep, he had to take sleeping drugs. And that was the prescription. So he was prescribed sleeping pills. And the situation, how many of you have experience here? Some of you are sitting at the back, there are some seats empty in the front. Those who are sitting in the back, they're exclusively reserved for you. You want to come forward. So that those who are going to come late, they're kind of not standing behind thinking that the house is full. Okay, there are some seats here. So how many of you have an experience where in case you have a project deadline, or maybe you have a, at the office, or maybe in your college semester, whatnot, and you have not slept for a 1 day straight? Anyone have done? IT engineers, maybe I should say a week straight, probably. How many have done maybe 2 days straight, no sleeping? Or maybe more than a day? Now, if you have done a more than a day, have not slept, how many of you have found yourself becoming similar to zombies? You're like a walking zombie, you don't know what's going on, your eyes are red, you're frustrated, no digestion, no hunger, nothing like that. Imagine here's an individual who have not slept for days, weeks and months together. And he's dependent on the sleeping pills. Why? Because as soon as he would lie down, because he has trained his mind in a certain manner, his mind has become extremely agitated. How many of you here have had an issue with, once in a while, with a sleepless night? You lie down, but your mind is just running very fast and you're not able to sleep. Raise your hand high up. Raise your hand high up. It will be 100%. Welcome to the IT world. So kind of that, that's by default will be the case. Anyways, so that's what happened to him, and in his postmortem it was found because of the overdosage of the sleeping pills, he died. It's pretty interesting. Somebody who had such an influence where he could, really attract millions of people, direct them in something. Among all this, he could not influence himself. So the doctor said the cause of his death was the overdosage. But I disagree. Let me ask all of you, what do you think potentially could be the cause of his death? I mean, it was a mechanical answer, it was an overdosage of drugs. But overdosage of drugs was an effect, not the cause. It was an effect. But what was the cause of his death? Yes. His mind management, okay? Yes. Overthinking. What else? Yes. No peace of mind. What else? His mind was restless. Anything else? Mind. So I believe all of us have come to a right understanding. The overdosage or the drugs was the effect. The cause was his restless nature of his mind. Remember last time when we began our discussion, I quoted a study from World Health Organization which said every year 1 million people in this world die because of mental related disorders. Now 1 million, which means if you do a quick calculation, every second close to 10 people die because of mental related disorders. And the bad news is, post-COVID, the numbers have exponentially increased. People have really become mentally disturbed and wrecked like that. So that's the whole story about it. So Heath Ledger was successful externally, where internally he was a failure. He could influence everyone else, but he failed to influence his own mind, and he died. So what is success according to Bhagavad Gita? According to Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the definitions. The success is defined in different ways. I'm just in context of our conversation, I'm making a definition. This is second chapter, verse number 71 or 72. Krishna says, verse number 70. Please repeat after me. What is success according to Bhagavad Gita? A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So long story short, it's like you went out and have won all the battles, but you have failed with your internal struggle. Historically, if you want to give an example, we just celebrated Ram Navami. All of you, or most of you, would be aware of Ramayana, would have indeed seen some Ramayana series like that. Now Ravana, he became extremely powerful because of the tapasya that he did. And as a result of his austerities and tapasya, he received certain amount of blessings. Now when he performed austerities, he really had to control his mind. He performed severe austerities, had to control on his senses, urges and whatnot. He went on becoming a very successful, very powerful. If anyone has to discuss about his case study today, they would say Ravana was really successful until the time he made a mistake of kidnapping Sita. He was really successful. He defeated every opponent of his. Now you translate that into a business, which means he started a company which from scratch went on to become the number one company in the world. And any such endeavor does involve certain diplomatic things. It is not that it is a pure business. The Ravana was successful. But that same Ravana, he went out and won all the battles, but he failed with his own internal struggle. Where did he fail in? Where did he fail in? Where did Ravana fail in? What went wrong with Ravana? Why Ravana and his whole dynasty had to be destroyed? External reason, he kidnapped Sita. Sita was the wife of somebody else. He abducted the wife of somebody else, therefore he had to be punished. And unfortunately he messed around with Vishnu. What do you expect? So he died, long story short. But what went wrong with Ravana? The action that he performed was an external thing, was an effect. Just like taking prescription drugs, overdosage was an effect. The cause was, mind was restless. What went wrong with Ravana? What went wrong with Ravana? He failed to control his desires. And of that, lust. He was having influence and control on masses, but he failed to control his own senses. So, that is a story of a failure. That is not called as success. In today's world, we look at success from the perspective how much you possess, how much followers you have, without even knowing about the life of an individual. Is he had peace with himself? But if you have not attained peace, satisfaction, then what is the meaning of calling a success? So it all begins with mind management. If somebody has gained a control over his mind, then he has already won the outside world. Why? Because if you have controlled your mind, then nobody can disturb you. There was a sage who was walking through the forest, and there was a villager who was very envious of the sage. So he saw this sage walking alone to the forest. He thought, now today is my day to take a revenge on him, and I'm really gonna criticize him. He went right in front of the sage and started chastising him, criticizing him, cursing him. Whatever thing came to his mind, he used all the abusive language. Sage stood there, patiently heard. The man got exhausted and he walked away. And the sage, when the man walked away, the sage began to walk. The man walked away and man was like, what? He doesn't seem to be affected at all. Despite I criticizing him, I am feeling frustrated. He thought something went wrong. He went running back to the sage. He said, wait a second, I have a question for you. I spoke ill to you. I criticized you. But you don't look at all disturbed. Wherein I spoke ill to you, but I am more disturbed. What happened? And the sage gave a very profound answer. He said, when somebody brings a gift for you, and if you don't accept that gift, who gets to keep it? You got the point? So you brought something to me, but I did not accept it. So who gets it? You get it. That's called the control. So if you have controlled your mind, then you have controlled the whole world. So nobody could affect such a person. Of course, that's a very high level of consciousness, but we are talking about here just to help you relate the importance of the subject of mind management. So now let's come forward or move forward. How do we control the mind? Now, if you want to control something, we need to know first of all what it is. For example, let's say, remember the day when you first sat in the car on the driver's seat and they were looking at which is an accelerator and pedal, isn't it? And you have put the key in the car, you have ignited it, and now you're about to start, but you don't know which one is the pedal and accelerator, isn't it? So how would you control the car when you don't know how it functions? So if you want to do the mind management, if you want to control the mind, first of all, we need to understand what it is all about. Then only we can talk about controlling it. And that is the whole subject matter that we are discussing here. Let's begin with our topic for today, which is the second part, titled as Kabhi, Khushi, Kabhi, Gham. A quick recap of what we did last time. How many of you were not present last time? Please raise your hand. Okay, we have a couple of hands here who were not present. How many of you were present last time? Raise your hand. Oh यार, ये तो दो ही same लोगों के हाथ खड़े हुए नजर आ रहे हैं. I'm a little confused here. You know who did raise your head for what? Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Ram. Hare Ram. Ram Ram. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Ram. Hare Ram. Ram Ram. Hare Hare. All right, till the time they just our team does a little setup here. So last time we began very quickly. We talked about the nature of mind, what is mind, and the default nature of mind to criticize, anxiety epidemic, etc. So we discussed about some of the flaws or struggles of the mind. Then we discussed about who am I. We discussed about our existence at 3 levels. We talked about 4 essential or fundamental truths of life from Bhagavad Gita. I am not all in all, God exists, etc., etc. And then we also saw how Bhagavad Gita defines our existence. It defines on 3 levels. Body, mind and soul. Hardware, software and the user. And to help you understand, we gave an analogy of a smartphone. And there then we added a point, when your smartphone gets infected, which generally is a software infection, when your software gets infected, you type in one, but it gives you different input. So you want to dial in something, but it dials something else. Similarly in our life, everything that we do has only one objective, to be happy. But our response is not generally like that. Or the output is generally not like that. Yes, what it indicates, the software is infected. But when you're using the smartphone which is infected for a very long time, then we tend to consider the condition, the infected condition of the smartphone to be the default condition. Imagine you give it a smartphone to a nanny or granny in a village who has never seen the technology. And you tell her, this is the dial pad, you dial and it will dial the number. So each time she presses 1 and it dials 9, what she'll get to know? Oh, this button means 9. Because she doesn't know how the smartphone works. And she would consider the infected state to be the default state. That's what has happened to all of us. We have grown up, we have gone engineer, doctors, whatnot. But we don't understand the nature of mind. So we think my nature is a default condition and cannot be changed. How many of you have ever given a feedback? This is what I am. Don't expect much of me. Raise your hand. This is what I am. Don't expect much of me. I cannot change. Raise your hand. Which means you have accepted your default condition to be the standard condition, but that is not the fact. So how do you fix a smartphone? We talked about it. Somebody who knows about the smartphone, he can tell you your software is infected. Similarly, just with you that tells us what's the problem in the mind. The mind is infected with not 1 and 2, 6 viruses. Anyone here knows the 6 viruses? The mind is infected with Trojan, virus, malware, what all? No, the different names actually. It's called lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride and false ego. Not 1 and 2. Sounds familiar? Have you seen with your manager once in a while? Maybe with your neighbor? Have you ever seen this in your mirror? When you look at your reflection, probably it exists with you also. How many of you say this is a universal fact? Raise your hand at least. This is a universal fact, everyone. So what we're talking about here, it doesn't pertain or restrict to one nationality or caste or belief system. So we talked about it, this is what it is, and then we discussed, and then we raised the 3 questions. Who enjoys? What is the purpose of life? Life is all about this, Kabhi, Khushi, Kabhi, Gham. And then we give an example about how it is not the body, how it is the soul, but it is a mind that undergoes experiences. And one of the examples that I gave last time was about, imagine you're sitting in a hotel and a big TV, flat screen TV gets stolen, whereas you're sitting at your home and your 21 inches TV gets stolen, which is old, 20 years old. But you will chase after the thief because it is mine. Whereas you're sitting in the hotel, you will not bother about if a flat screen brand new TV gets stolen because it is not yours. So the mind identifies. When it identifies, it gives a sense of its mind, I or mine. When there is a sense, then there is a sense of joy or suffering. So we kind of concluded with this. Now from here we'll pick it up, and we also talked about how to resolve this condition of mind. Anyone remembers what did we discuss about how do we fix the condition of mind? Meditation. We quoted a case study. Anyone remembers which university? Harvard and MIT neuroscientists had done a case study on the subject matter of meditation, and they came up with fantastic results, which are actually have been described in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures from the beginning of the time. Who suffers and enjoys is what we're going to begin our discussion again. We kind of came to a conclusion. It is the mind that undergoes an experience. So last time I had told you that this time when we begin our session, I'm going to a little bit give you a case study of how did I came up to this topic and in what situation I began to think on this subject matter. So this whole kind of a thought process began when I was somewhere on the 8th and 9th standard. Of course, I got the answer eventually when I read Bhagavad Gita. But the subject matter, who suffers and enjoys, first hit me when I was probably in 8th or 9th standard, I don't exactly remember. And I had gone with my family on a family visit to Jaipur. And there is this very famous theater, Raj Mahal or something, by the name. And there we went and saw a movie. And that movie had a great impact on me. So I'm going to show you the same movie right now. a little clipping of the movie, and I want your all attention here, and let's see what happens. I hope you all have seen that movie. Then my example would be really successful. If in case you have not seen the movie, then I'll have to really explain you. So, and I hope the sound will work. Okay. So let's watch the clip. The sound would be okay, and let's see what happens, and I'll explain you why we came to this topic.
जी चाहता है गले से लगा लूं, पलकों में रख लूं, मैं नजर में छुपा लूं। जी चाहता है गले से लगा लूं, पलकों में रख लूं, मैं नजर में छुपा लूं। पास है दूर है, कितने मजबूर है, रो रहा मेरा दिल, मेरी आँखें हैं नम। कभी खुशी कभी गम, ना जुदा होंगे हम, कभी खुशी कभी गम।
Hare Krishna. Anyone got emotional? I don't know if in case you got it or not. So, whenever I have done it, half of the crowd is generally in tears. It's a little open, there's a lot of outdoor noise, so you get into the emotion. So let me tell you about my situation. As I said, I was probably in 8th or 9th standard. We are sitting in this and if in case those of you have seen this movie, is about the son and family have got separated, and whenever the son, this kind of a music would remind you that, the love between the parents and the child. So I remember when I saw this movie, coincidentally, I had to see this movie 3 times. Good luck, bad luck, whatever it is. So first time I went along with my family members, I remember when this movie was going on, people were crying like anything during the show. And during the program, I saw the person sitting on my right and the person sitting on my left. As soon as this music would come, two, and their throat will become heavy, their nose will become heavy, they'll have heavy breathing, and they're crying and they're crying and crying. I mean, I was just like, generally you buy money, you spend money, go to movie to become happy. दुनिया में रुलाने वाले लोग कम हैं जो तुम पैसा खरीद के अभी थिएटर में जाके रो रहे हो. I mean, I was surprised, and whole through the movie, everyone is crying only, again and again. And people were crying, आगे रो रहे हैं, पीछे रो रहे हैं, यहाँ रो रहे हैं, वहाँ. तो मैं भी छोटा बच्चा था, कितनी देर तक बैठता. मैं भी रोना शुरू कर दिया. And when I started to cry, I really got frustrated, you know. And the worst thing was, not the worst thing, the most surprising thing was, this whole movie is all about indicating how the family have got separated. And the person on my right was my father. And the person on my left was my mother. And उन दोनों के बीच में उनका बेटा बैठा हुआ है. उन दोनों को पिक्चर देखते समय इतना भी ध्यान नहीं, वो यहाँ बैठा हुआ है, वो पिक्चर को देख के crying. I remember when the movie ended, I came out, I had such a severe headache. Money for this that you come out with a headache, and so much tears, so much tears. Second time I had to force to go because of my eldest sister, and the third time I had to go because of my second sister. तीन टाइम जब मैंने देखा और तीन बार जब मैं रोआ तो मेरे मन में प्रश्न उठा, कभी खुशी कभी गम क्या है ये? Who is suffering, who is enjoying actually? Now think about it, my parents are sitting next to me, why are they crying? I haven't left them. So who undergoes this experience? Who undergoes this experience? And you know which movie is a hit movie? Which lets you undergo these experiences. Which let you undergo, which help you identify very strongly with any of the protagonists. Either with the mother of the hero, either with the hero, heroine. And if you can identify closely, which means if your mind is able to map with the character, you get so absorbed in the movie, when you come back you say, वाह मजा आ गया. मजा नहीं आया, 2-2.5 घंटे के लिए तुम अपने आप को भूल गए, इसलिए you're saying मजा आ गया. So now who suffers, who enjoys? The son is sitting there, the parents are sitting there. We came happily to watch a movie. We probably didn't go back so happily, but I was there with my parents. And not only this, later when I went to America, I came back and during one of my visits, and then one of the relatives said, oh, there is one very interesting movie, you should come and watch. I said, no, I don't have good karma with movies, I better don't go and watch movies. Well, no, and watch, this is your relative. So I went on a late night show. On a late night show on my second day when I came back from America, and he brought me to the show. Doesn't look like a good show. He ain't smiling. So movie name was Ghazni, and the whole story was, long story short, I believe his girlfriend had been abducted or killed, and he goes all around the movie killing people. I remember, I too after half an hour went on the back seat, closed my ears and slept off. I'm not going to go. I remember the relative with whom I went, and when we came out, you know, he's married. He comes and he says, I feel like killing somebody. I said, what happened? बोला लगता है मुझे मेरा कोई मुझसे छीन लिया गया है, you know, and that was an effect of a movie. And I said, you are happily taken away, but why are you filled with so anger? You're so affected because he allowed himself, his mind, to go through a certain experience. So it was the experience of the mind which created the sense that I'm extremely angry. So Bhagavad Gita says, it is never the case of the soul, it is never the case with the body. It is only one thing that undergoes experiences of happiness and distress, that is mind. I will be building on this topic gradually, where you'll get more clarification on it. So who suffers and enjoys? It is the mind. Let's take a look at the 3-level model here for a second again. Last time we spoke on logic. I'm going to speak a little bit about what Bhagavad Gita says and then again draw the model. So what is this 3-level model? Body, mind and soul is made up of. Lord Shri Krishna says, 7th chapter verse number 4. Please repeat after me. Bhumirapo nalo vayu Khammano buddhire cha Ahankara ityam me Na prakritir ashtada. Bhumir, earth, apo means water, analo means fire, vayu means air, kham means ether. Bhumir, apo, nalo, vayu, 5 gross matters, manaha, mano, buddhir, intelligence, ahankara, false ego. All these 8, 5 plus 3, 8, Krishna says, bhinna prakritir ashtada. Ashtada means 8. These all my energies. So this gross body made up of earth, water, fire, ether, and the subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then Krishna says, Arjuna, who are you? You are superior to your mind. How? Krishna says, Aparyamritastu vanyam tim vidye param jiva bhuta mahabhavo yayedam dharyate jagat. So Krishna says, apart from this separated energies, there is also another energy of mind which is called as matter. Hey Arjuna, you are superior to that energy. The matter is an inferior energy, and the living entity, the matter which is described in the previous verse, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Krishna says that is my inferior energy. And greater than that energy is you. You means Atma, the spiritual. We are greater than the mind. If we are greater than the mind, which means we have the potential to bring the mind under control. That's the point I'm trying to make here. That's what Krishna says. We being superior to our matter, it means we have the potential to bring our mind under control. Not only that, Krishna further says, what? Please repeat after me. Na jayate mriyate va kadachan nayam bhutva bhavitva na bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Kadachin means at time. At no time you come into existence or you cease to exist. Jayate mriyate. Jayate means come to existence. At no time you have taken birth or ever die. Nayam bhutva bhavitvana bhuya, and that would never happen in the future. Ajanitya shashvatoyam purano. You are the oldest. You are eternal. You never die. You are shashvat. Ajo means you are unborn. Then what takes birth and what dies? Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Nahanyate means you never die. So what dies? Hanyamane sharire. It is the body that dies. Let me see if you all can capture here. Maybe I would have made this point in one of the previous courses. Does anyone know here what is the difference between living and non-living? I mean, our level of advancement is such. Today in America there is a debate who is a male and female. I mean, they even don't know who is a male and female. You know, they need a debate on the subject matter. What is a male and what is a female? Anyways, now coming back to our question, what is living and non-living? There's a lot of debate outside. People say, oh, you know, only humans have life. I guess I maybe shared this example. When I was studying in Ohio State University, next to my house there was a church. So post my graduation I was working there. So I was driving to my office. And that particular day was, only humans have the right to go back to heaven. I said, okay, because they are the sons of Jesus or the sons of God, like that, fine. When I came back in the evening, I happened to turn around and see the message was a little changed. And the message in the evening read, only humans have the right to go to heaven. So I was really intrigued. What happened? How come suddenly dog got an entry in heaven within the next 8 hours? Suddenly God changed his plan or what? So I called up a friend of mine who was actually a serviceman there. And I said, hey dude, what happened? In the morning you put this message, one of the church member, in the evening you changed and you added dogs. What good karma they did that you are taking them back home, back to garden? He said, no, they didn't do any good karma. One of the donors of ours, who is the biggest donor, is a pet lover. She said, you ain't giving access to my dog to heaven, I am stopping my funding to you. So, I mean, there's a lot of confusion, a silly matter. What is living and non-living? We go through 6 changes in our life. There is a birth, equivalent to manufacturing, right? And manufacturing date. Then after birth, there is a growth. Right? Born, you were a toddler, you grew up to become an adult. Then the growth, maintenance. Then there are byproducts to procreate. Product. Then there is an old age, dwindling. There is the fifth stage, and eventually there is a death. Right? We all agree we go through this life cycle. Now this is for living entities. Now talk about the non-living. What will be the stages for non-living? Manufacturing date, growth. You bring a small table, later on becomes an office table. It doesn't happen, you buy a scooty, it turns into a Mercedes Benz after 6 months. So you do have a manufacturing date, but there is no growth. Then maintenance. Now you don't bring Omni and Swift together and they would procreate, some Tata Safari. Nothing happens, right? That means there is no byproducts. But the fifth stage, dwindling, old age, yes, and finally destruction, expiry date. So the difference between living and non-living is 2 stages. What are the 2 stages? Growth and byproducts. Now, if in case I am the body, now this table and in this machine there is not much difference. As Krishna says, this machine is made up of 5 things: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. You understand earth? Soil. This is what you have it. Water, let's talk about the body. The skin is earth. Water, almost I believe 70% more than that content in our body is water. Then fire, Jataragni, we are a walking oven. 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 98.4 Fahrenheit. So earth, water, fire. Air, we are breathing in, breathing out. And ether. Ether refers to the space between molecules. Correct? Similarly, this is made up of earth, water, fire, ether. This building is made of earth, water, fire, ether. So what is the difference? Why it doesn't undergo a growth? Why this table doesn't produce a byproduct? Whereas I, a human being, an animal, or a bird, or a plant, undergoes growth and produces something. What's the difference? Now imagine, what we call as a death is also very interesting. What is death? The body is still there. Now, if let's say a 5-year-old child has been declared dead by the doctor, you keep him in a hospital for 1 year or 2 years, the child is not going to grow. But you say he's a human being? If every human being grows, why the child is not growing? What is missing? It is because of, as Krishna says, na jayate mriyate va kadachin naya bhutva bhavitva na bhuya. Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It is the soul which is eternal. Hanyamane sharire, it is the body that perishes. So it is a body that perishes, but soul never perishes. Because within this vehicle there is a soul. Therefore it undergoes 2 additional changes which it will never go. The growth and byproduct. So that's the point here. So what is death? Krishna describes death also. Let's take a look at it. Vasamsi jinani yatha vihaya navani granati naroparani तथा शारीरानि विहाय जीनानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. Very simple. Vasamsi जीर्णानि. Vasamsi means वस्त्र, जीर्णानि means old. जब कपड़े फट जाते हैं, यथा विहाया. विहाय means छोड़ देना. When the clothes are torn, you throw away. What happens then? Navani grahanati. And then you accept navani, new piece of dress, naro prarani. Like this, the old clothes are thrown away, the new dress is acquired. Similarly, tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani. Tatha means similarly, sharirani, जब शरीर बूढ़ा हो जाता है, vihaya jirnani means बुढ़ापा. जब काम का नहीं रह जाता, vihaya means उसको त्याग कर दिया जाता. उसके बाद आप नए स्वीकार करते हो. That's it, simple. What's so difficult? Does every sunset is followed by sunrise? Yes or no? Is every sunrise followed by sunset or no? Is every Sunday followed by Monday or not? Is your every birthday followed by another year or no? Everything in this creation is cyclical, but we are taught our life is not cyclical. We are taught under Abrahamic traditions, if you don't accept so and so religion and God, then you forever casted into hell. It never works like this. This is against the laws of nature. When sun would appear and disappear, why wouldn't the living entity go across the changes? That's the point here. Let me just show you a quick video. If in case you missed the previous session, some quick examples on reincarnation. Let's take a
Six
look.
stories that will make you look at this world differently. Ready? Number 6. Sam Taylor. Born 18 months after his paternal grandfather died, he first began recalling details of a past life when he was just over a year old. When he was 1.5 years old, he looked up as his father was changing his diaper and said, "When I was your age, I used to change your diapers." He began talking more about having been his grandfather. He eventually told details of his grandfather's life that his parents felt certain he could not have learned through normal means, such as the fact that his grandfather's sister had been murdered and that his grandmother had used a food processor to make milkshakes for his grandfather every day at the end of his life. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? Number 5. Ryan, a boy from the Midwest. Ryan's story began when he was 4 years old, when he was experiencing frequent, horrible nightmares. Once he turned 5, he made an announcement to his mother. He told her, "I used to be somebody else." He would often talk about going home to Hollywood and would beg his mother to take him there. He told her detailed stories about meeting stars like Rita Hayworth, dancing in Broadway productions, and working for an agency where people would frequently change their names. He even remembered that the name of the street he used to live on had the word rock in it. Cindy decided to check out some books about Hollywood from her local library, thinking that maybe something inside would catch her son's attention. And it did. Cindy said that once she found the below picture of the man Ryan claims to have been in his past life, everything changed. They decided to seek help from a famous psychiatrist who took on the case and started his research. After only approximately 2 weeks, a Hollywood film archivist was able to confirm the identity of the man in the photo. The picture was from a film titled Night After Night, and the man was Marty Martin, who had been a movie extra and then later became a powerful Hollywood agent before passing away in 1964. Martin had in fact danced on Broadway, worked at an agency where stage names were often created for new clients, traveled overseas to Paris, and lived at 825 North Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills. Unbelievable, huh? Number 4. Chennai Chumalaiwang. Chennai is a boy from Thailand who, when he was 3 years old, began saying that he had been a teacher named Boy Ka, who had been shot and killed as he rode his bike to school. He pleaded and begged to be taken to Buakai's parents, who he felt were his own parents. He knew the village where they lived, and eventually convinced his grandmother to take him there. According to their research, his grandmother reported that after they got off the bus, Chennai led her to a house where an older couple lived. Chennai appeared to recognize the couple, who were the parents of Buakai Lana, a teacher who had been shot and killed on the way to school 5 years before Chennai was born. The fascinating thing is that Kai and Chennai had something in common. Kai, who was shot from behind, had small, round wounds on the back of his head, typical of an entry wound, and larger exit wounds on his forehead. Chennai was born with 2 birthmarks, a small, round birthmark on the back of his head, and a larger, irregularly shaped one towards the front. Number 3. The case of PM. PM was a boy whose half-brother had died from neuroblastoma 12 years before his birth. The half-brother was diagnosed after he began limping, and then suffered a pathological fracture on his left tibia. He underwent a biopsy of a nodule on his scalp, just above his right ear, and received chemotherapy through a central line in his right external jugular vein. At the time of his death, he was 2 years old, and blind in his left eye. PM was born with 3 birthmarks that matched the lesions on his half-brother, as well as with a swelling 1 centimeter in diameter above his right ear and a dark, slanting mark on the lower right anterior surface of his neck. He also had what's known as a corneal leucoma, which caused him to be virtually blind in his left eye. As soon as PM started to walk, he did so with a limp, sparing his left side. And at around the age of 4.5 years, he spoke to his mother about wanting to return to the family's previous home, describing it with great accuracy. He also spoke of his brother's scalp surgery, even though he had never been told of it before. Number 2. Kendra Carter. When Kendra began swimming lessons at the age of 4, she immediately developed an emotional attachment to her coach. Shortly after she started her lessons, she began saying that the coach's baby had died and that the coach had been sick and pushed her baby out. Kendra's mother was always at her lessons, and when she asked Kendra how she knew these things, her reply was, "I'm the baby that was in her tummy." Kendra went on to describe an abortion, and her mother later found out that the coach had indeed had an abortion 9 years before Kendra was even born. Kendra became happy and bubbly when she was with the coach, but quiet otherwise, and her mother let her spend more and more time with the coach until she was staying with her 3 nights a week. Eventually, the coach had a falling out with Kendra's mother and cut off the contact with the family. Kendra then went into a depression and did not speak for 4.5 months. The coach reestablished more limited contact at that point, and Kendra slowly began talking again and participating in activities. Number 1. James Leninger. At the time of this case, James was a 4-year-old boy from Louisiana. He believed he was once a World War II pilot who had been shot down over Iwo Jima, an island that the United States fought to capture in 1945. His parents first realized this when James started to have nightmares, waking up and screaming airplane crash and plane on fire. He knew details about the World War II aircraft that would be impossible for a youngster to know. For example, when his mother referred to an object on the bottom of a model plane as a bomb, she was corrected by James, who informed her that it was a drop tank. In another instance, he and his parents were watching a documentary, and the narrator called a Japanese plane a Zero, when James insisted that it was Tony. In both cases, James turned out to be right. James also insisted that in his previous life, he had flown off a ship named the Natoma, which, as the Leningers discovered, was a World War II aircraft carrier. James said that his previous name was also James, and shockingly, in the USS Natoma Bay Squadron, there was a pilot named James Huston, who had been killed in action over the Pacific Ocean. Ask yourself, how could a 2-year-old in Louisiana remember being a World War II pilot shot down over the Pacific? What do you think of all these stories? Probably you.
Hare Krishna. This is just a quick synopsis, just what we are reading from Bhagavad Gita. And in case if you have missed the previous session, reincarnation, there are some 6 famous stories often discussed in the Western world about reincarnation. As said, there is a doctor by the name of Ian Stevenson, who is no more now, but he was a professor in University of Berkeley, if I am correct, and he certified and verified more than 2,500 cases of reincarnation. So is it too much of a coincidence that some reincarnates while others don't reincarnate, or probably everyone reincarnates, but we don't remember that? That looks more potential. All right, let's move forward to the next thing. Is about, this is what we have done, we kind of talked about who suffers and enjoys, it is the mind, and what is the relationship between the body and us, or the mind and us. We again discussed about the 3-level model. I'm going to just talk about a little subject matter called as mental conditioning. So what happens at the time of death? At the time of death, the gross body and subtle body moves on to the next physical form, which means the spirit soul, along with the mind, intelligence, and false ego, goes and accepts another form, physical form. And then the child comes out into the world and so forth. So all of us here sitting around have our own set of conditionings. And for those conditionings, at times we are praised, and at times we are criticized. All these conditionings, way of thinking that we have, are created because of our association, because of our social upbringing, the friends we have had, the kind of information we have heard. And that's how we have grew up to become what we are today. And it's very interesting, some of us may be disliked by others for certain behavior, while the same personality is parallelly loved by somebody else. How many of you have that experience? There are others who really like you, simultaneously there are some other people who don't like you. How many of you have that experience? If it is just the same person, how can you have 2 different set of people, one like you, one dislike you? It is all because of mental conditionings. And I'm here going to present a case study for all of you, and then I'm going to ask you some question. What would you comment about what you saw? Let's take a look at it.
वा काय आणलंय
चिठ्ठी
कशाची बाबा चिठ्ठी
सामानाची
सामानाची बघू बर साखर तेल 1 लिटर तूर डाळ तांदूळ आणखी
मला ना साक्षी सारखी वही आणि छोट्या भीमची बॅग आणा ना.
अरे बापरे बघू ही पण
She wants a small bag. Chota Bheem bag.
आणू आपण आण
तुम्ही फक्त वटाके आणता ती नाही आणत.
I hope everyone can see the transcript at the bottom.
किंवा
Father is
आज
poor,
पण सुट्टी ना
still he promises.
माझे आहेत मग सोबत
हा
मग असतील किंवा पण ठीक आहे
Here's another family who's gone out for a shopping in a shopping mall.
Wow!
And they're just swiping cards from one place to another place.
ड्राइव कर रहा हूँ करता हूँ
Tissue. Tap. Wait, ba. Oh God. भाजी घ्यायला विसरले. Sorry. भैया भिंडी कैसी दी?
20 रुपए
20 रुपए?
हाँ
ठीक से लगाओ और आधा किलो दे.
बरोबर
और ये मेथी कैसी है?
मेथी पण 20 रुपये जुडी 40 रुपये दर
2 मेथी की जूड़ी भी दे देना.
बरं
और थोड़ा धनिया भी डाल दो.
बरोबर देतो
जल्दी करो. कितना हुआ टोटल?
80 रुपये झाले
कितना? 80 रुपए. ये लो 50 रुपए बराबर है.
50 एवढे थोडी कमी होतात मॅडम 50 कुठे मॅडम
नहीं 50 रुपए बराबर है.
10 रुपये कमी द्या
2 ही सब्जी लिए 50 रुपए बराबर है उसके.
10 रुपये कमी 70 द्या ना
क्या झिकझिक कर रहे हो?
मॅडम नाही परवडत
हमको क्या परवड़ता है फिर? कितना महंगा बेचते हो? 10 रुपए एक्स्ट्रा दूंगी. ये लो 10 रुपए.
अहो नाही ओ मॅडम
बराबर है.
अहो मॅडम नाही परवडत हो.
चल रे अर्जुन.
अहो नाही परवडत हो. अहो नाही परवडत हो. 10 रुपये तरी द्या ना मॅडम. अहो मॅडम
पप्पा मला साक्षी सारखी छोट्या भीमची बॅग नको.
का बरं?
असंच
घ्या पण.
Hare Krishna. Any reflections? Any reflections? What did you saw? I mean, not what did you saw. What would you like to comment? I know this is a little bit emotionally rendering, still painful. Let me ask a question. Give me an answer in yes or no. How many of you would like to say it was too harsh of that rich lady to argue like that? She was moving around in the shopping mall swiping credit cards, but to a poor farmer, she was arguing about just for 10 rupees. How many of you say too bad of her? Raise your hand, please. And if imagine this lady walks up here right now you're going to really tell her, you are such a rascal. How many of you are going to really chastise her? Or if not, you're going to tell her, you have no manners. Don't you understand what happened to that? How many of you think you're going to really going to point at her and tell her, this is so wrong that you did? Please raise your hand. I mean, don't think that what repercussion, but even if you don't speak up, if within your mind you're going to have this corrective response, you were so wrong. Please raise your hand. Yes or no? Now here is a very interesting thing. The same lady who you all are kind of considering it as maybe a little devil, she shouldn't have behaved like this. But please understand that the same lady was loved by her husband, was loved by her son. She was so caring and affectionate for her family. So why the same person is loved while others hate the same person? Where does the problem lies? What's going on here? And it's all the game of conditionings. How many of you have seen your mother haggling over the price with the shopkeeper? नहीं बहुत महंगा दिया, थोड़ा तो discount देना ही पड़ेगा. Raise your hands. Now, if a little bit analyze, we have grown up in a social environment where you tend to argue over the price. It is but a nature. So now, if you a little bit give a benefit of doubt, it is not that she did intentionally. She was governed by her conditionings because she grew up in an environment where she saw everyone haggling for the price. Yes or no? Now, if you think like this, how many of you say, okay, she's not so bad after all? How many of you now would say she's not so bad after all? Raise your hand, please. It changes a little perception here. The point that I'm trying to bring in, it is never about an individual. We should never find a fault with an individual because it's not about him or her. It's about the mind. What kind of conditionings or how you have conditioned your mind. Therefore, Jesus says, Bible says, hate the sin, not the sinner. But you know where does this original quotation comes from? Let me show you in a short while. I'll just draw some lessons here quickly. What did we learn? The problem is with the software, that's the mind. We all on the same page now? Raise your hands quickly. We all agree? The problem is with the software, not with the person. Person is the soul, there is no question there could be problem. Conditionings are born due to various factors such as social upbringing, family culture, friend circle, etc. Our software, that is mind, is dynamic. It adapts according to the environment and we have the potential to change it. But it is not easy unless we follow the procedure. We will not be able to overcome our conditionings. What is the nature of the mind? Let's take a look. Please recite after me loudly. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna Pramati ballavadradam Tasyaham nigraham manye Ayuriva sudushkaram. So what is the nature of the mind? Chanchalam hi manha Krishna. Chanchala means flickering. Think about it. Arjuna who went to Dwarka to ask Krishna to become his charioteer, and now Krishna drives his charioteer, brings him to Kurukshetra, and Arjuna says, I'm not going to fight. How many of you have that experience? You decide for something and then later on said, no, I don't want to do it. How many have done that? How many have seen people doing like that? And it is Arjuna. From Dwarka he brought Krishna. Krishna took his chariot from Hastinapur or wherever they were parked or camped to the Kurukshetra, and he says, I'm not going to fight. That's the nature of the mind. Chanchalam hi manha Krishna. Pramati ballavadradam, which means obstinate and strong. When it decides something, it's very difficult not to do it. Let me give an example. Many years ago, when I used to do the Tamanna program, one of the IT professionals used to attend the program. And after the program, he gave an example. He shared his case study. He said, last week I came back home on one of the days from my office and I had my dinner and I kind of went to sleep around 11 o'clock. Before I went to sleep, I thought, why don't I just switch on the TV and check a headline? He switched on the TV and while watching the headline, there came an advertisement of chow mein. And he suddenly realized, chow mein is my favorite college dish. It's been so many months and years together I have not eaten. Kash, chow mein kha leta main. कितनी अच्छी नींद आती। और ये चाउमीन चाउमीन करते हुए इतना उत्साह बढ़ गया that he got down from his apartment, went to the parking garage, got onto his bike, and he went in search at 11 o'clock in the night of चाउमीन। 11 से लेकर 1 बजे तक नॉर्थ टू साउथ, ईस्ट टू वेस्ट पुणे का भ्रमण कर लिया। जिस भी होटल रेस्टोरेंट में गया, either the chow mein was not served or the chow mein got over. 1 o'clock he came back home empty handed, no chow mein, totally frustrated. He slept late. He had a very important meeting next morning. He got late for it. He got chastised by the manager, all because for his love for chow mein. And he said, प्रभु, अब मुझे पता चला है मन कितना खूंखार होता है। एक बार ठान लेता है तो बिना करे शांत नहीं रहता। कितने लोग का एक्सपीरियंस रहा है ऐसा? हाथ खड़ा करो। Universal fact, you can't change it. Obstinate and strong. And then chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi ballavadradam. Oh, switch off the volume of this, please. Tasyaham nigraham vanye vayuriva sadushkarmam. Is so turbulent when it decides something, then he can become so selfish that he can cross all the limits and boundaries. Let's go back again to Ravana. We just celebrated Ram Navami. Now Ravana, for that reason, considered himself to be so great, so powerful, yet when he wanted Sita, he used the help of Marich. He sent Ram away and he abducted Mother Sita. And if he was such a powerful person, he would have fought with Ram. But he didn't fought with the Ram. He was somewhere fearful that I might get defeated. And he acted as a coward despite being a proven most powerful person in the creation. Yet, because he wanted something and he was willing to do anything to get that object. Like this, when our mind decides something, the mind will push us and force us to break all the boundaries, all the walls of shame, and force us to perform any amount of shameless act. This is the nature of the mind. So therefore Lord Shri Krishna says, please repeat, Udharadatmanatmanam. हरे कृष्णा। प्रसादम है, जोश से बोलिए, ताकत के द्वारा आपकी जठर अग्नि बढ़ेगी। उदारदात्मनात्मानम नात्मानम अवसादय आत्मैव हि आत्मनो बंधु आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः। Krishna says, 6th chapter, verse number 5, Udharat Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avsadayat. मन के माध्यम से व्यक्ति को अपना कल्याण करना चाहिए, ना कि मन के माध्यम से अपना you should not destroy yourself. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur. Mind is a friend. Atmaiva ripuratmana. Ripu means enemy. The same mind can act also as an enemy. If the mind is controlled, the mind acts as the best of the friend. And the mind is uncontrolled, the same mind acts as the worst of the friends. How many of you would say your mind is controlled? Please raise your hand. Mind is controlled. When you don't know about the mind, how can you control? That's how we started. When you sit on the driver's seat in a car, you don't know what is a pedal and accelerator. That is daydreaming. That I know how to drive. And you drive, then you know what's going to happen in the neighborhood. Dhamaka. So mind is not in control. It's impossible because we don't know about the nature of the mind. So the very first thing, so far we have kind of understood what the mind is all about. Who suffers, who enjoys, it is the mind. It's a conditioning because of which we are forced to behave in a certain way. Now how to deal with this nature of mind? Very first thing, please repeat this loudly, very important, just to have certain amount of self-esteem and not get too much an anxiety. Identify the mind. Do not identify with the mind. Once again, identify the mind. Do not identify with the mind. Okay, what does it mean? Imagine you see somebody, or let's say you had a conversation with somebody, and he appears to be angry. He gets frustrated and he chastises you. You meet with this person and you come back to another friend of yours and he asks, how was your conversation? How is he doing today? What would you describe about this person? Anything? Anyone? What would you describe about this person who you just met and he blurted at you, he chastised you, became angry at you, and a friend of yours, when you go and meet him, he asks, how was it? How was your meeting with this man? What will you describe about this man? He is a madman, he was extremely angry, spoke very harsh words, etc., etc. Okay, imagine, let's say your mobile phone got misplaced. Not lost, but it's misplaced. And you're really searching around, you're frustrated now. And somebody asks you, how are you? What would you say? What would you say? What would you say? I'm frustrated? Possibly a good answer. I'm frustrated, I'm extremely sad. Correct? Let's take a look at it. How the discussion happens in Bhagavad Gita about the situation of Arjuna. Sanjaya is speaking to Dhritarashtra and is explaining the situation of Arjuna at the time when Arjuna had collapsed on his chariot, his Gandiva bow has slipped from his shoulder, and is looking at Krishna saying, Krishna, I am not gonna fight. Imagine yourself looking at the chariot and looking at the Arjuna right now. What would you describe Arjuna's situation? How many of you will say Arjuna has become very pessimistic? Raise your hand. Arjuna has become very depressed. Raise your hand. Now, is there anything else would you like to define about Arjuna? Maybe give some more adjectives. But you will all attach those adjectives to the I. The subject becomes Arjuna. But the problem is not with Arjuna. The problem is with, look at it, what Sanjaya says. Please repeat after me. Sanjaya said, do this consciously because then you will get into your head. Sanjaya said, Arjuna having thus cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot. His mind overwhelmed with grief. So who is grief stricken? Who is grief stricken? It is the mind, not Arjuna. It's a huge leap of understanding about oneself. So much we go about doing fault finding and whatnot. But it's not about I, because I am Satchitananda. It's all about, I have picked it up, is all about the mind. Let's take a look at it. Please repeat again. Identify the mind. Don't identify with the mind. Arjuna is speaking to Krishna. Let's see what Arjuna is speaking. Please repeat after me. O all-pervading Vishnu, seeing you with your many radiant colors touching the sky, your gaping mouths, your great glowing eyes, my mind is perturbed with fear. I can no longer maintain my steadiness. Mind. This is at the time when Krishna showed his universal form at the request of Arjuna, and seeing that universal form, Arjuna is totally terrified. And he looks at universal form, he speaks, my dear Lord, please, this is very terrifying form. I am afraid. No, that's not what he says. My mind is afraid. Who owns the problem? When you have to fix the problem, which we are generally in the consciousness, we all are trying to fix some problem 24/7. Yes or no? Have you ever thought your mind is always working about resolving something, correct? When you resolve or when you start resolving, first of all, you have to identify who owns the problem. It's with the mind, not with you. Okay, one more example, then we'll move forward. Once again, identify the mind. Do not identify with the mind. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears. Something. I mean, I don't know. I can't see the screen right now. I can quote the shloka. I don't remember exactly the English translation. Even my screen went off. All right. Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. All right. इतना तो बोल ही सकते हो आप लोग. कौन सा लंबा स्टेटमेंट बोला है मैंने? So Sanjay is speaking to Dhritarashtra, saying that Arjuna's mind is grief-stricken. Seeing that, Lord Shri Krishna began to speak to Arjuna. Once again, Sanjay says, who is under depression? The mind of Arjuna. Unless we make this change, it doesn't function or work. All right? Hare Krishna. What is making sound? We can just connect and disconnect. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. All right, so this is what we kind of read. So identify the mind, do not identify with them. So the diseases or the problems are with the mind, not with I. So this whole problem that people undergo, the issue of self-esteem, the issue of insecurity, pessimism, is actually not an attribute of an individual. Satchitananda doesn't undergo that. It's all an attribute of the mind. Once we understand the problem in the mind, then the treatment can start and the problem can be fixed. So what is a stable state of mind? How does Bhagavad Gita describes it? What's the definition of steady mind? Let's take a look. Dukheshu anudvigna manaha Sukheshu vigata spraha Vitaragabhaya krodha Sithadha munirachyate. So this is a stage which comes about with a gradual development and the practice of meditation. But we're just talking about what it means. At least we know what are the possibilities with us. So it is something like Sukhe Dukhe Samay Kritva Labha Labha Jaya Jayo, which means, as the verse says, Dukheshu Anudvigna Manaha, either distress or success. The mind does not get disturbed. Remember the example of a sage walking through the forest? Somebody came to him suddenly running and he started criticizing him. If somebody does not speak politely to us, we get disturbed. What to speak about somebody criticizing us, speaking harshly to us? So that is the potential within the human species. You can't expect this from a lion or a tiger or a deer or a cow or a plant. It's a potential within the human species. Therefore, the way the scripture says again and again, human life is the most rare form of opportunity we have got, where we can raise the level of consciousness, which is right now somewhere around the animal consciousness, and we can raise it onto the highest level of consciousness, where I control the choices that I make, where I control the responses that I give. That all possibilities there, only for those who are willing for that challenge. But who thinks they don't want to deal with it, and they want to continue with Kabhi Khushi, Kabhi Gham, Tara Ram Pam. This is what the life is all about. All the best. What can be done? So how to achieve the state of this mind? Let's come to the concluding part. Yes, we can attain this. What's the solution? Lord Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asamshayam Mahabhav Manodurnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagena Chagrihate. So Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, is possible. I do acknowledge it's very difficult to control the mind, but yes, it is possible. Just like somebody goes to the gym, When you do the bodybuilding exercise, it's pretty difficult. How many would agree it's difficult? But when you continue with it, then it is possible. So everything is possible by practice. When you know the right process and the practice, everything is possible. See what Krishna says. Abhyasena tu kaunteya. Abhyas. Just like you go to gym every day, continue the exercise, you will build your muscles. Similarly, when you do a practice on a regular basis, you will be able to bring your mind under your control. And we saw before in the session where Krishna says, udharat atmanatmanam natmanam avsadayat. If the mind can be friend, the mind can be enemy. If you're able to control the mind becomes the best of the friend. When you fail to control the mind, is the worst of the enemy. So what is this abhyas? How to control the mind? Abhyas. And vairagyana. Vairagyana means don'ts. So in any practice, just like when you go to take a treatment from a doctor, he will always tell you do's and don'ts. Do's, take to this medicine, follow the diet plan. Don'ts, if you got a fever, don't eat ice cream. If you got a fever, don't do this. Yes or no? Anything. When you go to school, you're given some do's and don'ts. In any part of training, there are always do's and don'ts. So we're going to focus right now on the do's. Don'ts we'll talk about in the future session. What is the do that we have to inculcate in our everyday practice? Those of you who were present last time, I had requested you all to take up to the practice of 10 minutes of meditation, chanting of Hare Krishna. Please repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any one of you was able to do that? Or let's say, how many of you tried doing it at least? Please raise your hand high up. How many of you tried doing chanting for 10 minutes every day? At least you tried it. Maybe couldn't complete it. Let's want to see the raise of hand. Once again, raise your hand. So, okay. Among all of you, how many of you were able to do it every day? You could maintain it for the whole week. Oh, great. For how many of you was it for the first time that you did it? Okay, 3, 4 of you. Any quick experience would you like to share? Anything that you had an experience doing it just in a week's time? We can have the mic for him. Let's hear from her. Anything. I mean, it's a gradual process, but any experience would you like to share just in a week's time?
Early morning I am doing that, and it was from past 10 to 15 days I am doing, and it was really peaceful, and whole day I will be relaxed and really nice.
Okay, pretty interesting. We had quoted this study last time. You remember this? One of the key points of that, you become better at focusing, you cultivate a better sense of internal awareness, and the third point that she's experiencing right now, she said, feeling a sense of low stress and feeling a sense of peacefulness. Anyone else would like to share? Somebody else. Yes, please give the mic to her.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I'm actually a professional bodybuilder, and I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but my lifts this week were more better, and my training this week was far better than what I used to do before.
It's possibly because when mind is at peace, you're able to focus better. When you're able to focus better, whatever you do, the performance improves. And that's what she has an increased performance. She was able to perform well. Just a week's attempt for 10 minutes. Now you look at the potential that we all have it. So that is what the subject matter of mind management. Let's take a look forward. I'm going to quote you another study today by Dr. Bryan. This is the concluding part of today's discussion. Dr. Bryan put it this way. We are nothing but we are a source of emitting energy. We all acknowledge this somewhat. I hope some of you have this understanding. We are an object of which emits energies. So when we are sitting together, there's a whole bundle of energies sitting here, producing positive, negative energy and whatnot. Similarly, the mind, not the mind, it's the brain, emits certain amount of waves, and that waves can be captured on electromagnetic device. And this study by Dr. Bryan found out that if the frequency is 3, this is the time when a person is in a drowsy state, sleepy. That's how the state, not just drowsy state, sleepy. It's fast asleep. That's the function. That's a frequency at that point of time of your brain. The second is if it is between 3 to 8, Is it drowsiness? How many of you have that experience while doing a work? You feel tired, exhausted, you're struggling to keep your eyes open? Have that experience before? It means your brain at that point of time is emitting a frequency between 3 to 8. Greater than that is 8 to 13. This is he defined as alpha zone. Alpha zone means you are relaxed, simultaneously you are alert. And his study calls it, this is possible for those who regularly does mantra meditation. Which means you are neither feeling drowsy, drowsiness means lack of attention. And alert means agitated. So neither you are in a drowsy state, we are losing attention, neither you are hyper attentive, where you cannot be peaceful. You are relaxed and alert. The frequency at that point of time is between 8 to 13. Greater than 13 is 13 to 18. It's the frequency emitted by your brain that is called as active zone. Have you seen some people who are really running around? You know, they don't sit peacefully. Have you had that? That's what is going on with the brain right now. If you connect this electromagnetic device to the head, the frequency range will be between 13 to 18. And above 18 is hyperactive zone. Which means if such a person body is totally exhausted and lie down, sleep. One example, Heath Ledger. We started our discussion from Heath Ledger. So for him, his brain wave frequency was above 18 because of which he could not fall asleep. So if we want to be successful, like she mentioned, she is a professional bodybuilder, she said, and she felt in the last 1 week she was able to perform well. This is something because of alpha zone. Because she did some amount of meditation, her mind, or the brain waves or the frequency was between 8 to 13 like that. Let me quote an example of one very famous singer. Some of you may know or may not know. He's sharing his experience doing chanting, meditation, and how he felt about. Let's take a look at it.
Mantras are,
George Harrison,
well,
the famous member of the
they
Beatles.
call it a mystical sound vibration encased in a syllable. They has this power within it, and it's just hypnotic, and it's kind of nice. It's nice. I mean, I've done that mantra for ages. Once I chanted it for like 3 days non-stop, just driving through Europe, and you just get like hypnotized. You get up on some subtle level which makes you feel so good that you don't want to stop.
Sweet Lord, now I really wanna see you, really wanna be with you, really wanna see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my sweet Lord, my soul.
Hare Krishna. So we're coming to the conclusion of our discussion. Hey Haribol, there is a time to dance right now, okay? Right. He got excited with the nice, it was one of the very famous hit songs of 70s back then. So George Harrison talking about that he had to drive once from New York to California, long journey, and all through the journey he couldn't stop chanting. It was like an addiction like that. So you have to try it to feel it what it is not. So to concluding with benefits of mantra meditation, last time I spoke about how it pacifies, like the mother said. Then we talked about exercises the mind as you go and build up. When it gets distracted, bring it back. Now what else it does, let's talk about. It energizes the mind. Hare Krishna. Let's do that. All of you close your eyes. We're going to chant. Can we have the kids away so there's less distraction here? Maybe they can be asked just to be quiet for a few minutes. Be comfortable, speak out loudly, try to hear as much as possible, okay? We'll start together. Let's see how it energizes the mind. Let's try to have an experience. And repeat out loudly along with me. I'll say the first mantra and then we sing together, we chant together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We'll start together now. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. You all can open your eyes. How many feel little relaxed? Raise your hands. Now this is something when you don't know about what this mantra means about. This is just why you kind of maybe felt a sense of relaxation is just because you kind of got disconnected from the chatting of your mind, non-stop chatterbox. Therefore you feel like, oh, there is a sense of relief. Imagine if that happens for a prolonged time, how peaceful your disposition would be. So it energizes the mind, fill our mind with a positive thought. When you meditate on Lord Nam, Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, on their personalities while chanting the names, you acquire these saintly qualities. And the fourth, heals the mind. It strengthens the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, strengthens us to deal with negativity, gives us the strength to let go, forgive, let go of the past. Let's not keep the past memories, in particularly the painful memories, close to our heart that keeps on burning us. Let it go. So it gives us the strength to give it up. How many of you here have struggled to forgive someone or somebody? If somebody had done something in the past, you felt like if that person comes in front of me, abhi joota utha ke marunga. Maybe not like that, but your mind will become agitated, which means you have not yet forgiven. Is there any one person in your life you think, oh man, he didn't behave properly with me? If that person has to come in front of you, you will become agitated. Is there any one person like that? Raise your hand, please. Raise your hand, please. You all are damn saintly people, huh? You have let go all good. Have come with a good karma account. Anyways, the point here is, it's difficult. It's difficult. Okay, let me put it this way. Have you had an experience that in our life there are many people who have helped us, contributed in what we are today? But at times we don't remember all those who have done for us, but we often remember those who did not do what they were supposed to do for us. Is that making sense? We fail to recognize and remember those who contributed, but we often think about those who were supposed to do something but did not do something for us. That makes sense? Raise your hand. How many of you? That's what it means. Let go. There is some sense of grudge. There is some sense of negativity towards those people. So to let go is not easy. To let go, we have to catch on to something. And that's when we take shelter of the holy names of the Lord, take shelter of the Lord, then we get the strength to let go of our past. So, fourth point, heals the mind. You can just begin to imagine the potential, the possibility of your life when these things begin to work in your life. Can you imagine what kind of a mindset? The reality of the world that exists for you is nothing but the reality that you have created within yourself. The world, the people around you, what you think of them is nothing but what you have perceived. If your perceptions have changed, what would be the world that you would be living in? Altogether different. It all begins with internal transformation. So with that, we can come to the conclusion with, once again, going back to Lord Shri Krishna's advice for all of us. Please repeat after me once again. Bandhuratmatmanastasya Yena atmaivatmanah jitaha Anatmanastu shatrutve Vartitatmeva shatruva Bandhuratmatmanastasya Yena atmaiva atmanah jitaha. Atmanah jitaha, one who has conquered the mind, mind becomes the best of the friend. Anatmanastu shatrutve, one who has failed to control the mind, Vartitatmeva shatruva, the mind remains the worst of the enemy. The success of our life depends on to the degree we have learnt the art of mind control. With that, I conclude here for today. Thank you for kind attention. This concludes the first topic titled as Kabhi, Khushi, Kabhi, Gham, where the main subject matter was to identify who suffers, who enjoys, to understand I am different than my mind, and it is the mind who undergoes all the experience. It is because of the nature of the mind, the conditionings that we have cultivated, we behave in certain manner. It is the same individual loved by somebody else while hated by someone else. Not to blame the person, whom to be blamed? The mind. The problem lies with the mind. The solution also lies with the mind. The body and spirit are all two different things. They don't undergo any experiences. Soul is always Satchidananda. Body is a dead matter. Is alive just because of the presence of the soul. And the interface connecting the body and the soul is the subtle body, mind. If we need to fix something, that is the mind. So that was the first session. Now we have understood what is mind, we'll get into mind management. So mind control begins with, first of all, you understand what it is. Then you can talk about controlling. So next time when we meet on the next Saturday, we're going to talk about the second topic of this series, mind management. And the second part of that topic would be mindfulness. We'll see that. Thank you all for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Before we conclude here, anyone has one quick question here? We can take one or two quick questions. Yes. The mic, please.
Okay. Is there any other technique, solution apart?
Nowhere I have come across anything else. Because meditation is said to be the remedy to fix the mind. Just like when you have to go and build the muscles, you have to go and lift the dumbbells. That's how you build your muscles. Similarly, for building the mental muscles, you have to perform meditation. Take off any tradition, take out Buddhism, everywhere, any path of spirituality may have different goals. It all begins with controlling the mind, and it all begins with meditation. They may have different forms of meditation. It's all with meditation, nothing else.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
जब मैं चांट करता हूँ तब देखा है कि मेरा मन बाकी चिंताओं से दूर रहता है. तो मैं जब कार चला रहा हूँ, बाइक चला रहा हूँ या नॉर्मली वॉक कर रहा हूँ, क्या हर समय में मन में चांट कर सकता हूँ?
We can chant all times, but you don't get so absorbed in chanting that you forget you're driving.
नहीं.
We can chant at all times.
Yeah.
Which means don't fall asleep while chanting. Some people, when they start chanting, they fall asleep. Not that because they got too absorbed into it, suddenly they were pushed into the state of relaxation, which they never had or they didn't have it for a long time, and there was a huge shortfall of a sleep. Suddenly they get into a sleepy state. What to speak of chanting? I have seen people when we are doing kirtans. I remember I was having a kirtan sandhya, and one gentleman, all through the kirtan sandhya, loud kirtan is going on, he was so peacefully sleeping. मुझसे रहा नहीं गया. कीर्तन खत्म होते मैं उसके पास गया. मैंने कहा, ओए, मैंने ही जाके उठाया. इतनी गहरी नींद में था, उसको पता भी नहीं था कि कीर्तन खत्म हो गया. मैंने कहा, हरी बोल, उठो, सुबह हो गई है. मैंने कहा, क्या बात है यार, कीर्तन हुआ है, इतना सो गया. बोला, प्रभु जी आपकी आवाज बहुत मधुर थी. मैंने कहा, ये आवाज मधुर होने के कारण है या मेरी आवाज से तेरे को नींद आ गई? बोली, प्रभु जी जो भी कहिए, कीर्तन सुनते ही इतनी अच्छी नींद आई, मैं बहुत दिनों से सोया नहीं था, आज सारी नींद पूरी हो गई. It was a short while of sleep, which he covered it up during the kirtan like that. Meditation, we talked about Dr. Bryan's research, right? It changes your frequency level, that's what it happens. So, how do we chant? It's best to sit in a neat and clean place and a place free from distraction. And keep your eyes, because the moment you're going to close your eyes, a lot of chance you're going to fall asleep.
Right.
At the practicing stage. Later on when you become mature and advanced in practice, mind is far much more peaceful, then you will not fall asleep. But the early stages, you'll fall asleep. There could be two things. Your mind is so agitated that you can't fall asleep during even chanting. And if your mind is okay, then you may fall asleep while chanting. Depends on what's your background, what's the state of your mind. So to begin with, we should keep our eyes open, but it should be distraction-free environment, so that we don't get distracted and we can hear the sound that we are chanting. Okay. So all right, we'll pause here. If anyone else have any questions, you can catch up with me after the session. And I believe today also is Akshay Tritiya. Akshay, Shay means khatam hona. Akshay matlab kabhi khatam nahi hona. So on this very auspicious day, any pious activity, any activity towards God consciousness, any good work which is done, it gives us unlimited benedictions and blessings. So I really wish to thank each one of you taking your time out to come today, and we all chanted the holy names of the Lord together, and we have definitely earned tremendous amount of blessing because today happens to be a very auspicious day. Just like 25th December, there is a Christmas sale, so you get everything on discount. So today is Akshaya Tritiya. Everything is on discount, super discount. You once call the name of the Lord, Lord is extremely pleased. Thank you very much once again. Hare Krishna.